Doing a quick little video update on my Alumacraft Cruiseabout. Just showing the interior close up and some of the damage and some of the things that need fixing here. They apparently either someone did this or used to come with a factory with this type of almost like a rhino lining, Linex type coating, almost like a rubberized tar that they put on the boats, and it's all the way on the ground and textured onto the ground. Now there's a couple other little spots like this one here where there's damage to some of the areas, and then there's, you know, just kind of dirtiness and dinginess and stuff on the aluminum that needs to be cleaned off, and most likely I'll just do a sanding and make it almost have like a satin finish. One of the things I wanted to show is on these old boats, this stuff from, you know, it being on so long ago, it comes off now and it just flakes off. Like here, for example, you can kind of just see how it flakes off. Now in theory this is a good way to seal the boat from leaks and stuff, because if you have a riveted boat, but the problem is that when it starts to flake off like this, what happens is it ends up holding water. So as it peels up, water gets behind the material and it sits back there. And now you're thinking, well, it's aluminum, what's the big deal with that, you know? And well, this boat came from Wisconsin, and it was, I'm pretty sure, in a lot of salt water. So when you get a lot of salt water, you get a lot of this here. You can see how it's kind of pitted, and then up here it's a little dirty, but you can see a really big pitted area where the aluminum almost starts to do a rusting type effect. Let me get my brush. And aluminum can rust. All metals can rust at some point, especially when introduced to salt water. And if you have water that's sitting, that's the worst. So here you can see a little bit of the flakiness right there. I'm gonna just give it a quick brush. This one too real quick. So you can kind of just see right there real quick what's happened when I brush it. You can see some of the pitting and flaking of the aluminum. It almost like flakes off in layers. And even there. Now, if anyone runs across this issue, really it's such a superficial part that it's really not too dramatic to where you have to take any big measures to say cut this out, you know, and repatch it or re-weld it or something. I don't think it's to that extent, but it's definitely good to give it a good cleaning with a brush, and also probably do a good pressure washing. And they also sell solvents and stuff you can put on the aluminum, like to acid wash the aluminum and get rid of a lot of this. And I just wanted to show that, and show that this is just kind of one of the processes in, you know, restoring a boat. Is just you're going to run across stuff like that, especially when a boat's so old. I mean, this one's from 1958, it's super old, and who knows how long it's been sitting in salt water or how long it's been doing anything. I will try to get as much of this off as I can, and you can see it, you know, it just flakes up, and see how it holds mud and water underneath. So I'm going to try to get as much of it up as possible. It's on the sides, it's on the floor, but I'm not going to really get too crazy with it. I don't know how important it is to go into that much detail. I think it's just good to do the essentials, and just do the best you can to clean it properly. You can see how much gunk has just kind of built up here. This is from my house too. It's not all, here's some of the stuff I've picked up already, but you can see how much gunk builds up, and all the cleaning that needs to be done. So this is just part of the process, and it's kind of a pet peeve, but if you really want to restore a boat, depending on where it came from, might be a better condition for you. But there's a spot that I kind of cleaned. You can see the texture of it. Rough. Another one there. And it just gets dirty, and light sanding will get that out. All that was little black marks and make it look really clean again. And I also wanted to show real quick some of the spots that I'm going to have to weld, and either I'm going to weld them properly, or I'm going to also try a brazing rod that's kind of been becoming popular lately, called Alumi weld, and they sell them at Harbor Freight, and my understanding is they're fairly inexpensive, and for this type of application where you're simply patching a hole in aluminum, it's very, very highly recommended. You can look up forums online about it, but you can see spots like this one here where the aluminum is straight up is just gashed and someone patched it. Here's a couple other ones. I mean, that's a full-on hole right there, and you can see my fingertip, and you can see how I just bent that up. I bent up the edge of the aluminum to show how flimsy it is. So those areas, if you look up YouTube videos on Alumi weld, aluminum brazing, you can see that these areas either can be cut out to a clean hole, sanded or ground out to make the edge very clean, and then you have to clean very well on both sides, on the back and on the top. And that aluminum brazing, I think it might be the way to go to save on more expensive tools that are needed. Here's another hole right there, and this is just one of many. I mean, you can see how big it is. It's at least a ½ inch across. There's one there, one there, and there's a few others that I'm gonna find. Like I said, this one still needs to be kind of cleaned out, and so on. Some old welding that was done there, and yeah, just showing this is part of it. This is part of the restoration, and when you get a boat to restore, you just kind of have to accept that these things have to be done. And when you pull up the floors on things, you are going to find a lot of things that you weren't expecting, and you kind of have to just make sure you accept that before you get into a boat, that there are going to be more measures than just taking it home, cleaning it, putting paint on it, and maybe a new floor or a new transom, and that's it. There's a lot more to it sometimes. But the more important the boat is to you, or the more special it is to you with more meaning, and the easier it is to make the process happen. For me, it's just a time issue of how often I can get out here and work on my boat with work and other things I have going on. You know, I'm just a regular guy, so I'm living a life like everybody else, you know, trying to work and do this, but it'll get done. But just wanted to show this is another little part of restoring a boat. And here too, on the old console, this is where, like, what was this? This was a speedometer. No, the speedometer was here, and then something else was here, like a switch. But see, these holes are kind of ugly, and since I'm going to a tiller steer, I'm pretty much gonna patch those up, weld them with a Alumi welder, actual welding. But big ones like this will have to get welded, but little ones like this can get hit with the Alumi weld. Even this, I've even seen people patch stuff as big as this, but something as big as this, or this one, I'm gonna just weld with an actual welder. And I'll try to show that when the time comes. But yeah, just a quick little video on another part of, you know, bringing one of these boats back to life, is the stuff you run across you're not expecting, and the way things were done in the past, and the way they got to be fixed, and the way people took care of their boats back then, and now you have to deal with kind of fixing that. You know, there's another little rust area there. It's like on aluminum, it looks like a little white rust like that. There's even one right there. And with sanding and the thin spots, if there's a really thin spot, I'll probably just clean it really well and then refill it with Alumi weld. And of course, like I said, if you wanted to be very hardcore, you can cut it out and re-weld it all the way and sand it clean and make it look like nothing ever happened. But you can only imagine doing that to the whole boat. and you have to really weigh out whether it's worth it or not. If you're going for full restoration, then it might be, or if that's just what you're into, then that's fine too. But for me, you know, this is more than enough work, and that should be good enough in my opinion. I'm also going to show real fast that I did get my boat off the trailer. That was a chore by itself, but it's done. Now the boat's sitting on cinder blocks, and that definitely was a chore, but I did it. Just takes time. Usually start at the back of the boat, and you start at the back of the boat, you kind of lift it up with a friend or something, or a jack, and then you stick blocks underneath, so now the back's propped up, and then you put some block. You do the same for the front, and then you put blocks there. Now as the trailer comes forward and you start pulling it out, the boat is now sitting on the blocks, but as it comes forward, you can imagine the axle and stuff is going to want to come hit these blocks. As it comes forward, it's going to want to hit the blocks. Well, at that point you stop, and then you would move the blocks behind the axle, and then do it all over again, as all the way till you get forward, managing the weight of the boat. It's usually better if you do it with someone else, and there is videos online on how to do it with really big boats, on how to take the boat off a trailer. But this boat looks big, but it's aluminum, so it's not as bad as you would think. But still, it is work. It is a safety risk, and you know, it's something that needs to be done, and it's really got to take your time and really plan out well to make it safe and stable. And now, you know, I'll give it a quick wiggle. I mean, I'm shaking it off. I mean, it's on there. I mean, I can't really show how stiff, but it's very steady, and I feel very safe getting in it. So anyway, a little update on some of the things I found, and things that are gonna have to get patched and rework, sanded, cleaned, and just, you know, slow and steady she goes. When you do these kind of things too, depending on how your life is, you need to accept that it's going to take a while and stick with it. And if it's really your passion, you'll get it done. Just have to take your time. So I'll probably update again when I get to the point where I'm maybe cleaning the inside, or doing some Bondo, or I don't know, doing something else that might be beneficial. So until the next one, take care.